the most brave thing you can do is open up and be vulnerable and roll the dice, take the risk, do it with, try to pick some safe people. Like, I'm not just saying go up to some random stranger, but like within reason, like in a safe community, open up and you'll be amazed at what would happen. I hope you don't get hurt through it, and that is possible, but that's part of the
Right.
risk, and it's part of the risk in anything we do, and I think that's part of manhood, right?
Welcome to 3%. We're your hosts, Jamie Hay.
And I'm Blake Roberts.
We're two best friends, fathers, husbands, and just two guys trying to figure it out.
We're also therapists, which is probably a pretty important part.
That's true.
And we believe that at our best, people are 97% honest with themselves and others. And it's that hidden 3% of emotions, needs, desires, and behaviors that we keep to ourselves that keep us bound to shame and loneliness, from which many of our issues stem.
Each week on this podcast, we'll interview leaders in the fields of psychology, theology, arts, and athletics to explore holistic masculinity. We're not here to tell you the man you need to be, but we are here to help you explore what gets in the way of being the man you want to be.
We're going to help you develop courage and give you the tools to share your 3% in the relationships that matter most so you can more deeply connect with yourself, God, and others. So, pull up a chair.
Let's get into it.
So let's be honest. Let's be honest. Let's be honest.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the 3% podcast. We are so excited to have you here, and we are excited to have my friend and Blake's new friend, Pastor Chad Mondragon, on the podcast with us. We've been working on a really cool project with Chad that we'll talk about shortly here, but just to give a quick intro to who Chad is, he's the director of discipleship at Pillar Media, longtime pastor, a father of 5, and a guy who's really passionate about helping people grow deeper in their faith. Not just professionally, he also is heavily involved in ministry at our church. Chad and I go to church together, and I've seen him impact lives of all ages. He's working with the youth ministry at our church, people. So he's a special guy. We're excited to dive deeper into his story today and to talk more about a faith that feels real. So, Chad, we're glad you're here, man.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here.
Yeah.
I feel like we've bit working on a project together, and although I'm meeting Blake today for the first time, I feel like we're old friends, and Jamie and I have hung out a lot, so it's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious. I want to know more about your last name. It's so unique. Like, is there any history to that name?
Yeah, people think dragon and they're always like connected to something else, but it's a Spanish last name. So there's actually a town in Spain called Mondragon. But I am from a part of the U.S. in southern Colorado. My family kind of originates from a town called San Luis. It's right on the border of Colorado, New Mexico. And we have a saying there that we didn't cross borders, but border crossed us. And so we have been there when it was Spain, and then it was Mexico, and then it became the U.S. And so it throws people off when it comes to talks about immigration and what do you do when borders move. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
interesting.
cool.
So your family has been there through all of those changes.
Yeah. In fact, this is like when I want to be distracted, I do these online searches and go deep in like these family trees, and I was like, is it like just 3 or 4 generations back? How far? And it's like, I'm talking like 12 generations back.
Whoa.
In that area. I was trying to find like how far back did it go to, from Spain to that, and we're talking like 1500s. Like, yeah.
Whoa.
Pretty far back.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's super cool.
There are worse things that you could do if you want to be distracted.
Right?
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't care so much about the stories that I come up with from this, but eventually someone will care.
Yeah, I think that's
I love
pretty
that.
awesome. So, father of 5, can you give us a little context on your family here, Chad?
Yeah, I have two girls and three boys, and the age range right now is 17 to 12, so they're like really packed in there. I have a seventh, eighth grader in middle school, and then I have a 10th, 11th, and 12th grader. So we're just kind of like we're in it. I serve at the youth group where we go to church, and mainly I do it because it's a way to hang out with my kids. Like in the summertime, our whole family goes to camp. Instead of sending your kids to youth camp, because I serve in the youth group, my wife serves in the youth group. All seven of us go to camp, and we love kind of holding the record for the most amount of family members at a camp. So
Yeah.
we'll do it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's so awesome. And I've talked about this on here before, but my wife, Elizabeth, is the middle school youth pastor at our church. And Chad and your wife, Melody, who's now also an area pastor at our church, she only has incredible things to say about y'all. So maybe we need another episode where it's just like a parenting masterclass from you and Melody, like to be parenting 5 kids in an age range of spanning 6 years is like, wow, that's
Yeah,
the only
this-
people crazy enough to do that are my parents, because all 5 of us are also in 6 years, and my siblings. which
It's
is
not
crazy.
necessarily family planning. It's more of we have a few surprise kids in there where it's like, oh, we're having another kid. It was not the way we would have maybe planned it, but
Yeah.
I do for people who do want to have a big family. My one encouragement is this, and I've told my wife this: try
What if
to
he was
have
like,
all your
"Don't"?
kids. Don't. No, dude.
My
It
one
really is.
encouragement, don't.
It's so much fun. I mean, right now I'm kind of in the heyday of it, of like they're older. And one thing that
Yeah.
I miss the most, I didn't realize this till this last Christmas, that the thing I miss the most is family dinner. And you take that for granted because as kids, you're doing it and it's chaotic and all these sort of things. But life catches up to you and you slowly don't realize the kids get a job. And so they're gone in the evenings or they have sports things and we're all over the place. So the time that we have for all 7 of us to sit down for dinner is few and far between. I mean, like maybe once a week. Now, we do have family dinner, but a lot of times there'll just be 5 of us or just 3 of us, or it kind of wavers. But my favorite time is all 7 of us, where there is nothing afterwards, so we could kind of linger at the table and talk, and the kids can laugh and their banter, and even the fights break out. Still, it's not all great, but even the fights bring to the surface, what's going on in their life and their heart, and that's kind of where my perfect day is right there, like family dinner all day.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything specific you do at your family dinners?
No, with so many people, I don't even need to try to contrive it. Like it just comes
It's group
out.
therapy in that way.
Yeah, it really is. And it's unique because you have all those different personalities who are used to playing off of one another, and so you kind of just let it do its magic. Every once in a while, I'll throw out a question, and if used to be like on Sunday afternoon lunch would be, we'd talk about church or the message or whatever it may be, but for the most part, they do a good job filling in all that conversation.
Yeah, sure.
I cut you off though. You said you were gonna say your one thing that you encourage for people that want to have big families.
Have all your kids in 1 month. Oh, our kids are born like they're staggered, so we have birthdays for like forever. It feels like every month we're throwing a birthday party. So it's like starting in September is when our oldest, so we have a birthday September, October, November, December, January, like literally every month. So you feel like you just got done with the last party and you're starting to like prep for the next one. And I'm like, I wish we would have just had them all in 1 month, have one giant party, and we're done for the year. But that's also me being like selfish. Like it's a lot of kids parties, and the expectation
Oh, yeah.
these days
Yeah,
is
man.
huge.
It is. Yeah, no joke. We just had one for my son last week.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, and he's still young. Wait till there's like classmates
Ugh.
and then the more kids you have, the more parties they get invited to. So now my first question is, do you even know this person? Like I didn't realize you would have to ask that. But you're like, do you know this kid? Let's start there. Secondly, are you even friends? Like, do you ever talk to this person? Because if not, like I start like cutting off the parties. Otherwise, we would go broke just buying gifts for all these parties.
Totally. Dude,
That's
I'm
amazing.
sure my parents would resonate with that because they used to give me a hard time at the dinner table because I would tell stories and I would preface everyone's name with my friend this. And it's like just a slew of random people, some of whom they've never heard of.
Yeah,
But I'm making sure you know every single time I talk about somebody that you
they're
know
your
they're my
friend.
friend. And I think probably Elizabeth feels that that is how I feel about people now because Blake and I share this. We love a chat with a stranger.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
like we'll be the ones who are like, uh, we did this one day. We were like in Murfreesboro, I think, and we were like just sitting outside of a cigar shop having a
Oh yeah.
cigar, and we just talked to some random dude who was at a chair next to us because we even talked about how our wives hate it when we do this. So
Hmm.
let's do it because it's just us here.
Yep.
And I feel like probably, I don't know about my daughter, Charlie, but I do think that Leo
Mhm.
has that in him where he's just
100%.
like, he's going to be the one who's like, well, we got to invite them. They're my friend. And I'm like, I've never heard of this person, Leo. And like, that's fine. They're still my friend.
Yep.
It's coming for
Yeah,
sure.
you'll notice your kids, they take on that personality. My second oldest, Addie, is that way. She doesn't know a stranger. Everyone is her best friend. And I still remember when she was little in elementary school, I'd go eat lunch with them periodically. And because they're so close in age, I would go for the first period with my daughter, Juliana. And I would sit with her, and it'd be her and one friend sitting across the table from each other. and and then I'd go to the next lunch and it'd be Adeline and Addie. Like, there would be at least 10 girls just smashed in one side of the table. They wouldn't even sit across from each other, but they had to be like touching and close. And I would be like one guy on the other side of the table with her and all her friends. And it made me laugh because the personalities were so different. Where Juliana, I'm like, do you just have this one friend? And she's like, how many do you need, Dad? I just need one. I'm like, well, what happens on the day she's sick? Who do you eat lunch with?
That's right. That's
Um,
right.
and then there's Addie, and she's like, the more the merrier. She once wanted to be a DJ because she would tell us, and literally went for to school when they had like career day dressed as a DJ. And I'm like, why all these kids are like dressed as veterinarians and doctors and lawyers, all this stuff. And here's my daughter with her hat like sideways, these
Yeah.
chains on. And I'm like, why are you dressed like a DJ? She goes, Dad, they get the party started.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Addie, come
That tells
on.
me everything I need to know about her.
Yeah,
Yeah. She's a
still the same.
blast. Yeah. She's a blast.
But she's turned it around now. Like she's hosting Bible studies for her friends at our house now. And I'm like, why don't you just invite them to youth group? She's like, Dad, they're not going to come to church. I'm like, bring it then. I will provide as much food or whatever you need. Keep it going.
I
That's
think that
cool.
speaks to who your family is for sure. That little anecdote right there. I would love to hear, you know, I know that you have worked in media now for quite a while,
Hmm.
but before that, I know you were pastoring. Could you just give us an idea of how you've ended up doing what you're doing now and where you came from in that?
Yeah, so I'll take you back to the story. It goes back to when I was 15. I grew up in a Roman Catholic home, and we were just kind of like not super faithful church attenders always. And my parents sent me to this Christian school, and I heard the gospel for the first time, and I became a Christian. And from that point on, I knew I wanted to follow Christ, but I didn't love like the traditional way of doing that, if that makes sense. Like
Mm.
all I saw, and I became a Christian in back then was a fundamental Baptist church. So they're like super strict and people wore suits. And I'm just like, can't we talk about Jesus without a tie or a suit? Or why does it have
Mm.
to be this way? So I share that anecdote in that when I finally ended up in ministry, we started planting churches. And our desire was, how do we reach people who don't feel like they fit into the average church? Like, you know, they don't feel connected to whatever the churchiness of it.
Hmm.
And so we started a church in Lexington, Kentucky. Then we started a second church in Denver, Colorado. And it was kind of like through that process of how do we just try to create space for people to find Jesus in a more organic way, maybe is the best way to say it. And I say all that to say, like, we're at a mega church now. So I'm not like, not everything's organic in my life. But the point of it is like, what does that look like? And how do we get back to that like New Testament church where people just were like in love with Jesus, loved on people, and somehow the Spirit is just like building this thing up.
Hmm.
And so that was my journey working in churches for about 14 years. The last church we were at, I kind of walked into it as an assistant pastor kind of role over discipleship. And it didn't last very long, but I realize now that God uses all parts of our lives, even when we feel really down and negative and that bad things are happening. Like that's part of the journey. And so in that church, I was only there for a year and a half. But the first Sunday that I was there, I met a man who I said, let's have a Bible study together. He was new, I was new. And so we started a Bible study together. And then it was through that when I left that church, we were still friends. And he happened to be the CEO of a Christian radio media company. And he's like, I want you to come work here. So media and Christian radio was never on my horizon. It's nothing I ever thought about. It's honest. If I'm honest, it like really wasn't anything I even listened to. Like that wasn't my jam necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But the Lord used all that part as part of the journey. In fact, it was a really hard part of our journey and a hard part of our story that when we moved to Tennessee, that company moved me to Tennessee because this is where they were broadcasting out of. And my wife's always like, man, I wish we could erase like those last 2 years of our life. And I just remind her, I'm like, it's part of a journey. Like we're on a journey and you can't just erase your journey. Like a lot of times the Lord uses those negative things to get you to the next place in your journey. And I see that through the connections that I made, but also through in listening to you guys. I've learned a lot listening to you all just on the idea of like fortitude and like working through pain, and it helps us. And maybe sometimes I use the analogy of, I've done construction and hard labor before where you build calluses on your hand so that the next time something rubs really deep, it doesn't rip your skin off. Like this time you're able to endure, and it's that fortitude. And we needed that. Sometimes people get the idea, and my wife said this, and maybe I thought it in the back of my mind, like if I'm working for Jesus, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, like everything's just going to go great.
Right.
And it doesn't. Like I needed a little bit of pain and suffering in that moment, and it's really shaped my ideas around the church. And so that's what brought me into media. All of that story also hinges on what I do now. Is I know what the church has to offer people. I know what the pain of being maybe hurt by the church looks like. And now what I do is I work for an online discipleship ministry called the Jesus Table, which is part of Pillar Media. And we have created a discipleship platform to reach people who they believe in a higher power. They believe in even Jesus, but they just don't feel like they fit anywhere in the church. And so how do we connect with them and let them know like there are others out there who care about your faith, even if you don't go to church, even if you're just scrolling online. Like I believe the Lord can use that. And so that's what we're doing. We're trying to build now products, studies, whatever you want to call them, videos that are just there to engage people right where they're at in the middle of the mess that they feel that they're in.
That's beautiful. And so necessary.
Yeah. I'm really glad. Like, I don't think I've heard that full heart of it before. Like, we've talked a lot about it, but I don't know that I've heard you put it that way. And it excites me because I think that is like a gift that you have to just step into where people are and meet them there. I think of like, I don't think this is like a thing that, well, you talk about it, so whatever. Um, you're a part of F3. Like
Hmm.
that's a big thing that Chad does. And for people who don't know what F3 is, I don't know how regional that is, Chad. So like that
It's
feels
throughout the U.S. You could find
okay.
it in any city.
Okay. You want to tell people what F3 is?
Yeah, it's actually a men's. It's for men only, and it's a men's fitness group. Well, I'll say it's a men's leadership group that's disguised as a fitness group.
Right.
I'll say it that
Hmm.
way. Okay. So their early morning workouts, they're free for men. But what it's become is it's only free because it forces guys to lead a group of men in some sort of like boot camp kind of workout. But
Hmm.
then it has builds like a fraternity of men working out. The three F's stand for fitness, fellowship, and faith. And
Hmm.
so it is faith based in the extent that it's not overtly Christian. It's you need to believe in the power higher than yourself.
Hmm.
Whether and most of the guys, at least in Tennessee, are Christian. I've visited. And the great thing is it's all over the U.S. So when I travel, I'll be up in Cincinnati and I connect with the group there
That's
of
cool.
F3. When I'm out in Colorado, when I'm out for work at the office, I've gone to work out with those guys. In Georgia, all over the place. You could pick up a workout group, and it's incredible because you just meet also new guys along the way. But
Hmm.
what it's brought out is how lonely men are.
Hmm.
In fact, we call it and I don't know if it's I can't. I'm not here to represent F3. There is like a bigger organization, but at least around here we call it the sad clown. It's the guy who is trying to perform every day and make it seem like he has his life together, but he's not. They're wasting away. They feel lonely. They are staring at their phone looking for some sort of something.
Hmm.
And the thing that I love about it is you go to F3, you get a nickname. So you don't even have like your regular name. They give you a nickname. And there's just out of all the counseling and retreats and all these things that I've done, I've just found like, oh, it all kind of culminates there. I'm sure it was purposeful, but I don't know if people realize the purposefulness of it. Like I did a men's retreat where you were not allowed to talk about what you do, because
Hmm.
it's such a huge problem. Like that's what men do. We go, we find out what you do, we're sizing you up so that then we kind of categorize you and determine things about you before we even get to know you. At F3, you kind of get this weird name a lot of times based off of your story, not necessarily what you do, and you're there to work out, and it doesn't matter
Hmm.
if you're really fit or not. Some of the guys are, but it's like it's that you showed up, and that the hardest part's you woke up at 5 a.m. to be at a 5:45 workout, and you're gonna put in your 45 minutes.
Yeah. I feel like to me, the reason I asked you to talk about that is because I really want people who are listening to understand how, like, this is not something like we're talking about, like, the job that you do, right,
Yeah.
at Pillar Media. But I want people to understand that this is not a job that Chad does. This is who Chad is. This is how I experience Chad wherever I see him. Is like Chad wants people to experience the gospel no matter where they are at. And so he's,
Hmm.
working with, well, now you're with, your group's a high school group now, right?
Yeah.
But they were middle schoolers when he started working with them. You know how crazy you have to be to work with middle schoolers? So you got to meet those kids where they are. He's meeting men where they are at F3, and like now professionally he's meeting people where they are with the Jesus table. And like I guess I know too much about you, so I got excited about people understanding like who you are, rounding that out. But to me, I find that inspirational as like you know, I'm a father too.
Hmm.
I see how you've led your kids. I want I want to be able to meet my kids the way that you've met yours, and I want to be able to meet people the way you do with the joy that you do. So, I
Well,
think
thanks.
that's the I think that's the context I'm trying to get have people understand who are listening that this is not just like a Chad's a Christian who's always been a Christian who works at a Christian radio station doing a Christian Bible study now. Like this is like
No, and
Yeah.
maybe I throw the question like back at you. I mean, I know it's y'all's podcast, but I want to throw it back at you because you see a lot of people. But my understanding is most people are looking just to be seen.
dude.
And it doesn't take a counseling degree, it doesn't take a pastoral degree to be able to do that. Like it's just acknowledging someone where they're at, and we live in this world where either we're trying to be seen for something we really aren't, and we are the sad clowns just performing for people, even though that's not deep down inside where we are messed up and sad, or or things are just so busy. And so whether it's in the youth group, I'm there, we don't have these profound lessons. I let, Jamie's wife will teach and all these sort of things. But when we get to small group, I just want to know, hey, how's your day? Hey, I remembered your name. Hey, I came to your football game the other day. Like they just want to be seen. And a lot of the times, most of the people we come in contact with, it's just like someone wants to know their name. Oh, you remembered me? You remembered a prayer request, or you remembered that I'm just struggling here. I don't even need to say I'm struggling. I'm just like, hey, how's your job search? Oh, you remember that? Like nobody else ever asked me. And as odd as that sounds, it's just like caring for people. That's all it is.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. To me, that informs, I guess, maybe why I have so much energy around talking about these attributes of you specifically is because I admire them. And I think also they speak to what I think holistic masculinity needs to be for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to make people feel the way that I see you making people feel. And I think that is like to hear that that's part of the heart of this Bible study too, that I didn't I understood the breadth of some of what you wanted to do with Jesus Table, but to hear that you want it to be meeting people wherever they are is like, I'm like jazzed up at.
When we started the Jesus Table, it's kind of an anomaly that our focus was the loneliness epidemic that's going on in not, I would say US, but in the world, but the loneliness epidemic that is actually caused by media, and actually saying we're going to use the means of media to hopefully lean in and fix what is broken too, like helping people to feel seen. But I don't, I can't go a week without reading or seeing something as it pertains. It may not use the word loneliness epidemic, but it's pointing in all those directions all the time.
Blake, have you ever heard of the loneliness epidemic?
No, it sounds like a good title for something though. He's poking fun of me because I have a newsletter that I write on Substack, and the only viral letter I wrote was titled "There's an Epidemic Among Men," and it was about loneliness. And I actually pulled it up when you were talking about that earlier because I wanted to read a stat from it that I included, which was a recent survey that found that 30 years ago, this is for men, obviously, specifically. 30 years ago, 55% of men had at least 6 close friends. Now only 27% do. And the percentage of men with no close friends has increased fivefold. And men, and I don't know when this episode is going to air. It's August 21st as we're recording, but September is Suicide Awareness Month, and men are 3 to 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, when we do this work with men, I have so many clients that will say they have like great family, they have good friends, like they have people. There are, as the survey showed, like a number of people that would say they don't have a friend, not even a close friend, but just a friend. But there's a lot of people who do. They're just not known by those people. And it goes back to what you were saying about the desire to be seen. I think it is Kurt Thompson that I've heard say that we come into the world looking for someone and someone looking for us, primarily our mom, when we come out of the womb. Like, as anybody that's had a child and has been in the room when that happens, like the not maybe its eyes aren't open, but like the baby is looking for the mom and the mom is looking for her, and that connection is so necessary for like survival. And a lot of us have just stories where that us looking for that connection or that person looking for us doesn't continue that way, which becomes really harmful for us. And so then we get used to it's almost safer to not be seen. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's a risk to try and be seen. And a lot of times it does take something like what you're doing and what we're trying to do with this, which is like going, it's kind of the same thing. Like we're looking for somebody that is looking for somebody, because when
Mhm.
you feel truly seen and known, it it really changes you. And it's one thing to grow up in a faith system and a place where you hear that, like that there is this man, Jesus, who sees and knows you more than anybody else ever will. For me, there, like I grew up knowing that at sort of this cognitive, level, and I believed it too, but it wasn't, and really until like recovery, where I experienced kind of the hands and feet of Jesus from another person, truly seeing and knowing me, and then accepting me, and that I have that real life experience of it that then makes the knowing of what I know Scripture to say even that much more real.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I don't know why I went off on that tangent, but
Well, I think culturally, like, how did we get here? That I appreciate you say, like, as a baby, we're like seeking that.
mhm,
Culturally, we are so sophisticated or so high tech that somehow we've become dumber, would say, as it
yeah,
relationally or in so many ways. Like, it has just slowly eroded the things that men were taught for ages, and they were taught about one another. They were taught about the communal, fraternal, like, aspect of life, where
yeah,
now it's so individualistic that we've missed the ability not only to know ourselves, to know other people.
Mm.
And it's not just isolation, but it's the idea that it's okay to be messed up. Like,
Mm.
that's why other people are there. Like, that's why they're around. And so you talk about, like, people saying, well, I have friends. Well, what does that mean? You have friends. You have people that you can have a good time with. I have some friends who have other friends, and I'm like, do you know them? Do you just like hang out on the weekends, and you drink together, and you have a good
mhm,
time together, but do you know each other? Like, do you know where you're hurting, or what's, you know, what worries you or keeps you up at night, or what anxiety, like, what does that mean you have friends?
Mm.
And I think it's
mhm,
easy kind of to say that, but even you still look culturally at a lot of cultures where men still go to the pub not to get drunk. They go just to hang out, and they sing together, and they tell stories, and it's communal. And where do we have that where men can even just have a communal place?
Mm.
mhm, yeah,
I think to your point about how media has been very isolating, I think one of the things that I've noticed in myself is part of what, even to bring it to what our Bible study, this project we've been working on, is about, a faith that feels real. I think what made it difficult for my faith to feel real in some respects was how difficult it was for me to feel.
Mm,
And I think the media part of it has played roles at different times. I would say, unfortunately, like the dominant media that was isolating me was pornography, but that can switch hands, right, into something more acceptable or socially encouraged. Like, I can get so caught up in comparison through Instagram, or feeling even like, what was the phrase? I think Blake, you said it before, socially connected and relationally empty
mm,
through Instagram, that I feel like I'm um, either connected to others, and then I'm disconnected from my own loneliness, and then I feel shame for feeling uncomfortable when things are going well objectively. And so then I disconnect further from myself through either repeated use of Instagram or hopefully not something more destructive. I'm speaking for myself. Hopefully, I don't go further destructive than that, but that would be the way more recently that it would happen, is just either just checking out or being on social media. And I think the way that I see that impacting other people and not just men is like, it's pretty hard for our faith to feel real if we are completely disconnected from ourselves,
Hmm.
and if we have no space to connect with ourselves and then to connect with other people in a healing way. What made me think of this was when Blake was talking about really experiencing the hands and feet for the first time in 12 step. Like, some of the things in myself that would allow me to have a relationship with God were locked up in that 3%. And they were locked up in that 3% because I wasn't allowing myself to feel the true emotion that was underneath the shame of the 3%. So like, maybe I'm brokenhearted about whatever led me to watching this specific thing in pornography, or I'm I feel hurt, and that's coming out as like resentment of someone, of the guy who abused me, or someone in my family. And I'm, instead of being fully honest about those things, I'm stuck kind of in these ways of caretaking those by, just living out of the resentment or just numbing it out with porn. And the more I connected to them by communicating them to like Blake and others, I think that's where I felt the hands and feet be able to, like, it's being known and loved. But I was like only partially there in the known part. And so what has really changed a faith that feels real for me, and to your point, Chad, of like, how did we get here societally, is really like learning, how do I connect to myself so I know what I need, so that I can take those things to someone who says they love me, and really allow myself to be known and loved by them, including God.
Yeah, it's finding space. And someone even just this morning at F3 told me they hate the word vulnerability, but they're like, that means it seems like you're weak. And I don't know if I agree with that, but
You could send
do
them our
we,
website.
yeah, but do we have space to be known even? And there used to be there still is, because I'll refer to it. Um, on the website, The Art of Manliness has an article called Strip or Die. I don't know if you've ever read that, but it's basically talking about the Olympians and how when they would go to work out in the arena, like they stripped all their clothes off.
Hmm.
And it was kind of like, the second you stop stripping down is the second you're saying, I'm done and I'm going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't live in a culture that does that. We want to be able to kind of compete and do stuff from afar, but we don't ever want to be vulnerable enough to just like totally strip down. I mean, like, here I am. This is who I am. And the weird thing about it is we're just, and I think it's the lies of the devil too. Like, we believe that there's something odd about our feelings, are odd about our struggles. And I'm kind of the nature to be like, no, you strip down, because underneath, like, the reason you're invited there is we're all the same. Like, we all have the same struggles. We're struggling. We're all struggling with lust. We're all struggling with power issues. We're all struggling with pride. Like, it just, it may not like line up exactly, but we all to some degree have that struggle. It's whether or not you could pretend like it doesn't exist, but I just assume it does, and everybody I come into contact with. So if I believe they have it, like, then I have to believe like mine, although bad, it's not gonna surprise them when I actually
Right.
out myself with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in 12 step they call it terminal uniqueness. So it's like the idea that whatever you think is the most unique about your struggle will lead to the terminalness of whatever
Mm,
that struggle is, because you forget that you're not the only one in pain, and so that shame keeps you bound in it, right? Because it's like
yeah,
either it's like a pride struggle or it's a shame struggle. There's like
yeah,
nobody can understand what I've gone through. That's terminal uniqueness. Or like same words, different tone. Nobody can understand what I've gone through. There's like this shame thing of like you can't let it out because that'll be the thing that gets you rejected. And to your friend at F3, I would say like the reason that vulnerability feels like admitting you're weak is because the being vulnerable is admitting that you can be harmed. But then what is there's two routes from that, right? The antithesis of I'm able to be harmed is that I'm not able to be harmed. Well, then you're going to have to become pretty self-protective if you're not able to be harmed. And that's going to come out in a whole lot of different ways.
yeah,
And then the other direction too is if you are able to be harmed, great, you're also able to be loved.
hmm
There's no route to feeling loved outside of being able to be harmed. Because if you can't give yourself to somebody and say, I'm trusting you with these pieces of me that are soft that you won't crush them, then Blake and my shared therapist looked me dead in the face earlier this year. So just talking to your friend that he's not alone in his fear of vulnerability. He looked me dead in the face this year and said, Jamie, if you don't allow yourself to be a burden to anyone, how are you ever going to feel loved by anyone? And I think that's what I mean to your buddy. It's like, yeah, it's vulnerability and weakness are not the same thing, but I get why they feel the same, because you are admitting that I don't have a lack of potential to be harmed. I actually have great potential to be harmed. And what I am choosing in vulnerability is that that doesn't make me less.
Hmm.
yeah. Mm,
Yeah. The man who says that or the woman, we have female listeners, who says vulnerability is weakness is somebody who was harmed in a moment of vulnerability by somebody who should have cared for them.
hmm
And so I'm going to protect myself from that happening again. But like you're saying, it also, and that, I think we can have a lot of compassion for ourselves for that,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's a beautiful strategy by our nervous system to keep us from experiencing further harm. Like if I am vulnerable and I get hurt by that, and then my system learns to go, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. That helps. Like maybe that's the only resource I have. And
Mm.
then you realize that later there are people who won't harm you in your vulnerability, but will actually help heal what was done. But you have to take the risk of opening yourself up to experience the opposite of what you're afraid of.
Yeah.
And I always tell clients, like, it's kind of a win-win, not to minimize the harm of it, but if you are vulnerable with somebody, two things will happen. One, they will meet you in the way that's the opposite of what you're afraid of, which is great. Like,
Sweet.
okay, we're moving forward. There's the healing. Let's say it's a friend and they respond and tell you like that you're being a baby and you probably should just get over that, like it's not that big of a deal. Then okay, you could reframe that as a good outcome, because then you get to go, is this somebody that I want to invest in a friendship with?
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't know if we stay in the place of I'm just not gonna do it. We don't know. We don't get to experience the fruit of the healing of what can come if we do step into the vulnerability, and also having empathy that it's hard, because if vulnerability feels scary, there's a reason.
I I appreciate kind of what y'all are saying in that it can become like cyclical or like an avalanche happening on you. And I'm sure a lot of guys experience this where I don't want to be vulnerable, but I'm not feeling loved. And I appreciate what you said, Jamie, in the sense that sometimes we have to be vulnerable to experience love, like someone leaning into that vulnerability. It doesn't just happen organically. Like sometimes one perpetuates the other, but if we're unwilling to be vulnerable, then it ironically then also keeps us from experience other people loving us in a good way.
Hmm.
Um, and I think maybe a lot of guys are just stuck there right now. Just, you know, I don't feel like I want to be vulnerable and I don't feel very loved by other people.
Yeah.
Maybe the answer is the most brave thing you can do is open up and be vulnerable and roll the dice, take the risk, do it with, try to pick some safe people. Like I'm not just saying go
Yeah.
up to some random stranger and just start telling them about your porn addiction or something, but like within reason, like in a safe community, open up and you'll be amazed at what would happen. I hope you don't get hurt through it, and that
Hmm.
is possible, but that's part of the
Right.
risk, and it's part of the risk in anything we do, and I think that's part of manhood, right? Is like taking risks. Like we do that. You go hunting, you're taking a risk. Take risk in people too. It's okay.
Mhm.
It's actually more scary for us to take risk in probably people than it is to go hunting or you know scale the side of a mountain is far easier for most people than even just sharing vulnerability
Mm.
vulnerably with another man.
Yeah, we have a lot more story, harm, and experiences in sharing vulnerably with another man than we do in scaling the side of a mountain, probably. So
Mhm.
it's, yeah, I think you're dead on there. Well, it may be also that somebody has like if you're like I'm scared because I'm scared of being rejected, um, or you're like, is it worth feeling loved? That actually might speak to what your experience of love has been.
Yeah.
So, like, if that's how you're listening to, and you're like, I have felt loved before and it wasn't worth whatever. It's like, I don't know
Mhm.
that that's love, then that's been your experience of love. And I want to have compassion towards that. I don't want to tell these people they're wrong. I'm just like, hey, love is worth experiencing. And it may be that you were taught a version of love that is pretty conditional,
Hmm.
or maybe it's
Mhm.
abused or mishandled. And so um, maybe even that's a place, the curiosity about that might be a place to start before you even attempt to have the courage to be vulnerable with somebody else.
A great resource on that, John Eldridge has a book called Fathered by God, and not it's been something I've recently been working through, and not only is it a great resource for me as a father, how to parent my kids well through different phases of their development in life, but it also just has you do a little bit of work of going backwards. How were you fathered by your father? And it does kind of dig up some of that stuff to be like, hey, I had a good father, but I really was lacking here. And what he does is he doesn't make you go and blame your dad and like it's not like, oh, now I have an excuse. It's like, no, now allow God the Father to lean into that space to fill that
Mhm.
void, and so that you can continue to move forward. But excellent resource, one that I've been just encouraged by lately in immense ways.
John's such a
Mhm.
sneaky therapist, dude.
Yeah, to take it from both, I wasn't expecting both sides of it. Like, normally most books are just pretty focused. Like this is about you parenting, and he kind of does this back and forth where you're just like, oh, how was I parented, and how am I feeling?
Blake, you were going to say something and I had cut you off. What were you going to say?
Um. Oh, we were talking about vulnerability and the fear of, well, what if I do get harmed, or what if something does happen that is not the opposite of like that desired outcome?
Mm-hmm.
And Chad, you were like, I hope you don't get harmed, but that is a possibility. That is something that we have to be aware of and acknowledge. And what I'll talk about with clients in that is if it doesn't go the way that you hope for it to, that also can be really healing. Arguably even more so because we're so like obsessed, and I'm sure we always have been as a culture, but it seems like especially more now of like avoiding discomfort. Almost like every session with somebody, it's the summary is I'm experiencing this thing that's uncomfortable. Help me not experience this thing that's uncomfortable anymore.
Solid
It's
summary.
like I don't know that that's actually the work. It's more about expanding our capacity to deal with the discomfort. And so if you take the step to be vulnerable and it's not met the way you want it to, that can actually change a lot of things in your nervous system too, because what you think is I'm not going to be okay. Because if we're backing up to like when we're forming these attachments growing up, like we need, Gabor Mate talks about this. We have this danger of having to choose between attachment and authenticity. And we need attachment, which is to the relationship with our primary caregiver, to literally survive. And so if our caregivers aren't able to accept or hold our authenticity, then we're going to reject that and we're going to choose the attachment. And so I see like we do the same thing now in our friendships and our relationships where we reject what is authentic in us, which may be like being vulnerable and sharing something hard. That's what's authentic, in order to maintain the attachment that I have with that person. Because that's like the old tape, right? But the truth is you don't need we still need attachment, but not in the same way. So you're not like, if you're vulnerable and you take that risk and you're authentic and it's not met the way you're hoping for it to be, you're going to be okay. You're going to be uncomfortable and we can work with that, but you're going to be okay. Yeah. And that is really helpful. Like I can think of so many times for me where that's happened and it's shown me, oh yeah, I actually can do this hard thing and it not go the way I want it to. And like, I didn't die.
Yeah.
Because I don't cognitively think I'm going to die after this conversation, but that's what my body feels like. My body's telling me.
Yeah.
Or you feel like you're going to be humiliated. You feel like you're going to, you could fill in the blank for whatever it is. And the honest truth at the end of the day, most people aren't that dialed in, that the reason that your vulnerability was met with any kind of negative is only because they're probably so preoccupied with themselves and their own
That's
issues.
right.
So they're not even like grossed out by you. It's more of they just don't know what to do with it, and they're not, and maybe they're dealing with the same thing, but they don't want to come clean, and being around you is a threat because they might have to come clean about what's going on in their life too.
Whoa, Chad.
Preach it.
Yeah, for real. Well, I think probably we need to land the plane here. I just noticed how long we've been going, but
can I bringing all this back to what we're doing in the Faith That Feels Real series too.
Do it, Chad. Keep preaching.
It's not just an issue of manhood, but we see it in the church then too, that there's this shame around asking questions, or feeling like I don't know enough, or being angry at God as if God can't handle your questions, like he's appalled by you, and he's like, what do you mean you're asking questions? And to me, as someone who's worked at the church, I've seen the fear in people, but as someone who's also just read the scripture, I come to the scripture and I'm like, hey, read the Psalms. It is full of people who don't like how God's acting, who have lots of questions about it, and he doesn't just smite them dead. Like there's space for grace for you. And so that's this Faith That Feels Real portion, is like, don't feel like you're just being ostracized because of your questions, your vulnerability. Lean into it, and we want to like encourage you in that, it's okay that you're like, I don't know if I could believe in God, or I don't know if I can, whatever, fill in the blank, or Jesus is real. Was he really a man, or was he really God? Like, it's okay to come with those questions that maybe you feel maybe too much fear from the church of being that vulnerable. This is that space that we, through that series, have actually said, like, this is the lie we're believing in a lot of the videos. We just put it out there, and so hopefully the goal is that you would resonate with, oh, well, that's a lie, I believe that. Like, oh, it's a lie, well,
Yeah.
let's talk about it then. And just trying to create space for that vulnerability that maybe you don't have the freedom on your own. We're creating space for you to have that.
Man, Chad, we are so thankful that you invited us into being a part of this project.
Yeah.
Even that, for everybody listening, is another way that I think Chad models a part of masculinity that we could all learn from. That, like, Chad has enough knowledge and pastoral experience to have made every day of this Bible study by himself. And he invited us and CZ, Curtis Zachary, shout out, to be a part of this thing with him, to incorporate other voices in. And we're super honored by that. So thank you for that. Where can people find it and support the work that you're doing?
You could find it at thejesustable.com. That's thejesustable.com. You could also find it on YouTube, as by that time it's all going to be uploaded on YouTube, and you'll be able to find it there. As well as you can look us up on Instagram. The Jesus Table is on Instagram to find out what are the newest things we're dropping, and that's kind of all our studies are kind of geared in that way of, like, how do we just make faith a little bit easier for you?
And for the connoisseurs of the Bible app, will also be in there, right?
Yeah, the Bible app, YouVersion's the Bible app. We're waiting for it to be approved, but it's all uploaded in there, and so hopefully by the time this drops, you should be able to find it there also.
Sweet. We're really thankful you took the time to come on and talk to us, and glad to be friends with you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Chad Mondragon. Is that how you say it?
Perfect. Yeah.
Nice. Wow, Blake, chill out over there.
I'm
Or
really
if you
proud of
see
myself
me,
with that
I
one.
just say Mondragon. It's easier for people to spell if you're just like MON Dragon. But
Nope. I'm always going to
Awesome.
say it like that
So
now.
awesome. Yeah, forever and always. I'm going to have to learn to do it too. All right. Well, for everybody, we're glad you're here. Keep coming back. You're worth it.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to another episode. Listen, we're working on some really practical resources to help you connect more deeply with yourself and others. So if you head over to our website, 3percentco.com, you can learn more about that. The link will be in the show notes. And this is the part of the show where we ask you for some help. Listen, we don't have a big fancy production team. We're recording these in my therapy office in between sessions and in the margins of our life. We just really believe in the message that much. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and rarely would I take the time to review and rate a show, just because honestly I forgot. It wasn't until we started doing this show that I realized doing that actually really does help these platforms notice our show and get the word out. And so if any of this is impactful to you, we would love it if you took a second to leave us a review, rate us, or if you want to just do it the old-fashioned way, text this link to a friend and say, hey, let's talk about this episode. Whatever you do, make sure to follow us on whatever platform you're listening to so you never miss an episode. We're really grateful you're here, and we'll see you next week.
So let's be